Hi, I'm Brett Larkin. This video has been requested. This is an Ardha Chandrasana half moon pose tutorial. This pose gets thrown into sequences all the time and it's quite tricky. So here we're going to break it down. Do you want to jump to the standing part of the tutorial right away and you're eager and impatient? Go for it. The button's right here. If you have an extra minute, I suggest doing this posture on the ground with me first, as it'll really clarify Ardha Chandrasana for you. So if you have something at home that you can use as a strap, maybe a yoga strap like I have here. Otherwise, just grab a belt or a scarf, just anything that you can use. We're going to lie down for a quick moment. So if you have the time, please do this because it'll really deepen your understanding of the posture. Otherwise, if you want to jump to the standing part of the tutorial, you can do so with the button right here. So once you're lying down, just take your right leg up into the strap. Good. And this is a nice little warm-up too. So first, flex the left foot. So the foot that's lying on the ground, usually we think of it as inactive, make it really active. So activate through the quad, flex the foot, make sure the toes are pointing straight towards the ceiling. It may feel like you're interiorly rotating your leg. So if you imagine that the floor is the bottom of our mat, and just start to pull the right leg in towards the face. Again, keeping the shoulders down and back. If you're out here, that's also fine. It really doesn't matter. Our intention here is to feel that both hips are pointing towards the sky. So feel both hip bones, right, are pointing towards the sky. So if you feel down and find your hip bones, they're those bony little things below your belly button before your legs start. Those are your hip bones. They're both pointing straight up towards the ceiling. And just begin to pull the right leg back towards the face. So if we imagine the floor is actually the ceiling, so imagine the floor is the ceiling, we're actually doing warrior three in this pose, right? Like this is the standing leg, and this is warrior three out behind us. So I'll even show you, right? It's warrior three. So right now we're doing warrior three, except that the ceiling is the floor and the floor is the ceiling. So for Ardha Chandrasana now, we're going to take the right leg out to the right. So begin taking the right leg out to the right. Again, it doesn't matter how far you go. But now we see that the hips are not both facing the ceiling, right? The left hip is still facing the ceiling, but the right hip is out towards the right. So there's an exterior rotation of the right leg. And again, keep that left leg flexed. So in our simulation now, this is Ardha Chandrasana. The floor is now the right side of the room. So again, I'll show you the simulation. But basically, we're doing this. But we're just doing it on the floor. So take a few more breaths there. And then bring the right leg back to center. Just take the left leg in the strap. And the right leg down, keeping the right foot flexed and active, right quad engaged. So here we are, warrior three. So just remembering that the foot that's in the strap is the foot that we're simulating as being on the floor. So this would be warrior three. Both hip bones are pointed straight upwards. Warrior three looks like this, right, in this simulation. So again, we're just doing these poses basically upside down. And then begin to open that leg out to the left. And just feel that the hips are no longer square to the ceiling, but open. That left hip is opening to the left. Let's take 2 more deep breaths. Good, and then bring the left leg back up. Let both legs go out of the strap. Hug your knees in towards your body. Maybe rock and roll yourself up. And you can flow through a vinyasa or just come find your down dog. Take a couple cat-cows. Pedal through the legs. So to start the standing tutorial, just come into downward facing dog. Pedal through the legs. Inhale, reach the right leg up and back. Bend the knees, stack the hips. Take a deep in breath. And then exhale, step it through warrior two. Good. So take a breath in warrior two. And see how the hips are straight. They're level with each other and they're facing straight forward. Inhale, we're going to come into side angle pose. So take the elbow to the knee. Top arm overhead. And just see how the hips have begun to kind of stack. Right, so they're no longer level. You're a little bit dragging the front hip underneath the back hip. Let's just take 2 breaths. Good, come back to warrior two. Now let's take triangle pose. So inhale, straighten the front leg. Maybe heel toe the back foot in. And again, you're going to drag that front right hip back in space. The left hip kind of pulls forward above the right hip, and you come into triangle pose. Remember to activate through the legs, spiral the chest towards the ceiling. 2 breaths here. So this is like a subtler version of Ardha Chandrasana. In triangle pose, we're really doing all the dynamics that are in Ardha Chandrasana. Our body is open towards the side of the room. We're stacking the hips. It's just less extreme. So let's come back now into warrior two. This is like coming out of Ardha Chandrasana, right? The hips are going to become level with one another again. Let's go back into triangle pose. Straighten the front leg. The lower hip lowers, right hip lowers, left hip comes on top of it. We're facing the side of the room. This is like a mini Ardha Chandrasana. One more breath. Come out of the mini Ardha Chandrasana. You're going to rebend into the front leg, hips restack. So the goal of this exercise is just to see that the hips are stacking one over the other while the body stays open towards the side wall. And then when you come out of Ardha Chandrasana, or in this case triangle, they re-level. So I like to come into Ardha Chandrasana through side angle because side angle, you're halfway there. So here the hips begin to stack a little bit. So come into your side angle, elbow to knee, or hand to the inside or outside of the foot. Good. And then I always like to take the top hand, in this case the left hand, to the hip. Next, I like to take a giant half step in. So right now we're in a wide warrior two side angle stance. Take half a step in. So take a half step in. There you go. And then if you have a block, you want to take the block a foot in front of you on the pinky toe side of the foot. If you don't have a block, still think foot in front of you, pinky toe side of the foot. That's kind of where you're aiming with your hand. And you're going to lift the back leg. So again, I'm pretending I'm pressing into a block here. And it's kind of just like you're doing triangle pose, except the floor is the back of the mat, right? And then what you want to think about is stacking the hips. So having a block here so you can just hold on is really nice. It's also really nice to do this against a wall. So if you have a wall at home, I advise that you go there. Because in the wall, you'll feel it's really safe to lean back and begin stacking the hips. Then you want to have the back foot flex. So a lot of times I see in class like dead legs down here. So you really want to have the back leg flexed a lot. And then you want to have it level with the torso. So a lot of times people dip their torso way down. You want to have your torso even, and it's hard to see. I'm sure when I watch this video later, I'll have a lot of critiques for myself. You really want the torso and the back leg to be in line. And then you're thinking of constantly stacking the hips. So the hips stack. Left hip over right hip. And right now I have the wall and it's helping me, but if I were to move back and do this at my mat, it's actually quite tricky because it's easy to fall backwards if you're not careful. How I compensate for that is I think of lengthening my tailbone, so the bottom of my spine, I think of lengthening my tailbone towards my heel. So step away from the wall if you've been playing at the wall. And let's come back into it properly. So again, side angle. And then maybe hand to the floor, top hand to the hip. Giant half step forward, angling a foot in front of the pinky toe, so not big toe, pinky toe. And again, lifting the back leg. So flex the back foot the moment it leaves the ground. Good. And then maybe you'll lift the left arm up. You can also bring hands to prayer. There's tons of variations here. But you'll notice if you just think of stacking the hips, you're going to fall back eventually, right? I'm already falling back. So to compensate, think of stacking the hips, but then think of lengthening your tailbone towards your back heel. So if you think of just stacking the hips, your low back is going to arch. When you think of lengthening your tailbone towards your back heel, it's going to kind of flatten the back out again, draw the navel up and in. Good. And then once you have the legs figured out, there's all sorts of stuff you can do in the upper body, like spiraling the chest more toward the ceiling, stacking the shoulders. To come out of this, we're going to bend into the front leg, step it back, and be in warrior two. Good. Inhale, cartwheel the arms down. Step it back to down dog, and flow through a vinyasa if you like. Hopefully this was a helpful clarification on Ardha Chandrasana. Make sure to like this video if you enjoyed it. Comment below, let me know any insights you had or any of your own tricks about this pose that you want to share. I really want to hear from you in the comments below. And subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. If you feel a little uneven and you want to do the other side with me, I'm going to do the other side right now. So just click this button right here and we'll do the other side together. From my heart to yours, namaste. So Ardha Chandrasana tutorial, second side, just lift the left leg up and back. Bend the left knee, stack the hips. Take a deep in-breath. And then exhale, we're stepping into warrior two. So again, just like we did on the other side, here we see warrior two. Hips are even, pointing towards the side of the room, but even, right? So there's an equal line here. As we begin to now come into side angle pose, we'll see how this begins to shift. Left hip begins to draw back as the right hip comes up and over. And we just take elbow to knee to begin. It's also a nice little warm-up. Good. Come back up, warrior two. So that was like a little mini baby Ardha Chandrasana. Let's come into triangle pose. It's a little bit deeper Ardha Chandrasana warm-up. So straighten the front leg. Left hip really peels back. Right hip comes up and over. We're leaning against the pane of glass here, visualizing the legs sucking up the mat, legs super strong, body opening up towards the side of the room. So pretty much all the same cues as Ardha Chandrasana. It's just easier because we're not balancing. Deep in breath. And then exhale as you rebend the front knees, see how the hips begin to even out again. So they're even and parallel to the floor. Good. Let's come into triangle pose again. Inhale, straighten the front leg. Heel toe the back foot in. Triangle. So the hips are stacked. Let's come back into warrior two. Good. All right, so now let's go into side angle, our preparation pose, in which we'll launch off in. So take the elbow to the knee or the inside or outside of the foot. So lengthen your tailbone towards the back heel even here so you can feel the same dynamics. We want to lean back with the torso, but we don't want to fall back. So we lengthen the tailbone towards the back heel, drawing the navel up and in. Take the top right hand to the hip. Left hand, as we bend the back knee and step half a foot forward, half step forward. We're going to take it to the outside of the pinky toe side of the foot. Good, and I lift the back leg, the foot flexes immediately. So the foot flexes, back foot flexes the moment it leaves the ground. My hand is a foot in front of the pinky toe side of the standing foot. And then the goal is to get the torso and the leg at an equal height. Then to begin stacking the hips more and lengthening the tailbone towards the back heel. So I'm going to take it over to the wall, and I encourage you to do the same. The wall is really invaluable here, just to feel the dynamics of the pose in a safe way. And if you're at the wall, you can even start back in your side angle and come into it the right way. So half a step forward, foot in front of the pinky toe. And then just let your hips really stack. Because you have the wall, you don't have to worry so much about balancing. So just really stack right hip over left and just lean against the wall. So you can just feel the sensation of how this pose is supposed to feel like in its most extreme version. And then maybe try balancing. Good, come out of it safely, coming into warrior two. We'll take it back, away from the wall when you're ready. Coming first into side angle pose, top hand to top hip, Bottom hand, foot in front of the pinky toe, huge half step forward. Good. And then again, I think hands to prayer is easier than extending the arms out. And then just work to get the heel higher, and then torso usually higher than you think as well. Again, think of stacking the hips, leaning into that back wall. One more big breath. Exhale, step it back. Warrior two. Exhale, cartwheel the arms down. Plank. Chaturanga. Or skip it. From here, maybe take your child's pose. Thanks so much again, sticking around even for the second side, and I'll see you next time.